This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the fabulous and fantastic news in the wide world of sports. My name is Ben.
My name's Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
We are back here on a Wednesday, leading you into your fabulous, miraculous Wednesday morning, however you want to explain it. Whether you're at work, you're at home, at the gym, just doing whatever you're doing. We would like to thank you for listening and joining us as always. Got a great show planned for you today, talking some college football. We have the new college football playoff rankings. Last night they were released.
My guess was not right.
I don't think there's any real surprises. Maybe you can make a case for a few teams, but we'll talk about that in the first segment right after the introduction here. After the first break, we'll talk some NFL news. We have a certain somebody set to make their first career NFL start on Sunday, and then a guy who kind of got the cold shoulder thrown to him within the past week in my eyes, and then a certain somebody for the Bears that will not be playing for the next 4 days. Is Alex not? Seems
I'm just making like I'm acting out.
Unhappy, but
I don't mind. I think I talked about it a little bit yesterday. We'll dive into it a little bit more today with a group of us now.
There we go. And then we will end the show with some baseball news. We have the Manager of the Year awards. They were released last night for the American League and National League. And we have the Cy Young to talk about tonight. We have the awards announced later. So we'll do some predictions before we end the show.
I can dig it. Can you dig it?
Can you dig it, sucker?
Can you?
I can dig it.
Oh, okay. At least he answered my question. You just asked the question again.
Well, I was doing my Booker T.
That's dangerously irresponsible, Ben.
I was doing like my Booker T impersonation.
All right, anyway.
So Stephon Diggs of the Vikings.
I do know Stephon Diggs.
So every time like I'm watching a game and he catches a ball, I'm always like, "Can you dig it, sucker?"
Every time.
Yeah, because it reminds me because Diggs.
Every single time.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And then I remember, I'm a Packer fan, so I remember he scored against us. I think it was week 2 we played him, or 3.
Something like that.
I remember he scored and he did like the shovel, like digging celebration. I was like, hey, that's pretty clever, But don't seem to think so. But okay, anyways, moving on.
You're a weird fella, man.
So moving on, we'll be talking about college football playoff rankings. This is week 3 now. We're in this bad boy. So no real surprise, Alabama at the top. We have Ohio State moving up from number 5 to number 2. Michigan stays right at number 3, although they did lose to Iowa 14-13 on Saturday. Then we have Clemson dropping 2 spots after their surprising loss to Pitt 43-42. So Louisville and Washington are just on the outside at 5 and 6 respectively. And then Wisconsin, Penn State, the 2 Big 10 schools at 7 and 8. And then Oklahoma, the lone Big 12 representative in the top 10. And then Colorado, the second Pac-12 school. So, like I said, no surprise at number 1. But I am surprised Michigan didn't even drop with a loss.
Yeah, no, my guess was Bama, Ohio State, Louisville, Michigan. And so I was a little off on the 3 and the 4. You flip the 3 down, my 4 up to 3, and then keep Clemson in there and just drop Louisville out. Yeah, I was surprised that it looked the way it did. I mean, I predicted yesterday number 1 and 2, right? Because obviously that was easy. And from there, yeah, I had Michigan in the top 4 still, but not at 4. Or at least not at 3, excuse me. I had them at 4. And Clemson, yeah, no, I had them dropping out. So, I mean, it's interesting to see that they keep them in there. I guess they look at body of work as a whole throughout the whole season. The consistency in which they were winning games, I guess. Excuse me. It's interesting that Michigan didn't even fall at all. Not even a spot, that was my thinking in which Louisville would move in, because if Michigan and Clemson both dropped, there would be a void there, at least 3 in a sense. So it's just a little confusing to me, at least. And my thinking also is if Penn State beat Ohio State head, like straight up, right? And
yes.
They go on to win their conference championship, their title game.
That is if Ohio State defeat Michigan, because Michigan do have the tiebreaker over Penn State since they beat them.
Exactly. So Ohio State beats Michigan, and Penn State goes on to play in the championship of that conference, right? And they win. You still put Ohio State in the top 4 over a team that beat them head-to-head, won their conference. You know, I mean, I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm saying there's going to be a lot of people that would be upset if that's the case.
That's the tricky thing that I think about is when you look at it, if Ohio State run the table and Penn State run the table, maybe you put them both in. But how would you put Ohio State in over Penn State because of that head-to-head matchup? I get that. And I don't think that would be very fair if that were to be the case. Like, say Penn State don't even get in, even though they won the Big Ten and defeated Ohio State, and Ohio State do get in. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, who do you think is a better team, Ohio State or Penn State?
Oh, Ohio State, hands down.
Exactly. So if you still think they're a better team, although they did lose that head-to-head matchup, wouldn't you want to put the better team in? Like, I understand both sides. And I think everything will play itself out. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had the craziest week of college football this week since really 1985 when 2, 3, and 4 lost.
Which is weird because there was so much crazy things, like so many crazy things happening, yet there was like so little change.
Yeah.
The thing I don't agree with, I'm okay with these rankings. The thing I don't agree with is Michigan. How do you lose to an Iowa team who may have been ranked at the beginning of the year, coming off of a strong year last year, but are just not anywhere near that same team? They were 5-4 going into the game, so now they're 6-4. So that's like a decent enough record. But Iowa's not any good of a team. Michigan played absolutely terrible. Probably should have still won the game. They lose their starting quarterback Wilton Spate now, who's out for the season with a collarbone injury. So now they have to sort of deal with that kind of distraction and get other guys ready to play and everything. So for them to not even drop, I think Clemson losing at home to Pittsburgh is a worse loss. Mm-hmm. So I understand them dropping, but for Michigan to not even drop at all, that kind of puzzles me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what the preseason poll was? Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan, Clemson.
I think Ohio State was 3.
Oklahoma,
I want to say
the preseason was Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, FSU.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I thought I read that somewhere. Either way, I mean, yeah, this is still. I definitely knew 1-2, but from there, I mean, I don't know if I agree with Michigan being in 3. I don't know if I agree with Clemson being in 4 because in my ideal situation, I didn't have either of them in those spots. I had them dropping down at least one from each of those spots. So,
yeah, and we've seen basically with these rankings, like you said, things will sort itself out, right? Ohio State and Michigan, they'll play. One of those teams will probably be out at that point because you got 2 losses. Yeah. The committee still hates Washington. We've pretty much figured that out.
They're not getting in.
Well, they can still get in, basically, if Ohio State, Michigan, whoever loses that drops out.
They need, like, everybody in front of them to lose.
And if Louisville loses another game, like if they lose to Houston
and they need
on Thursday.
To obviously win out.
Right, and
which is
they
tough
win out.
because of the remaining schedule they have.
Right. So they hate Washington unless they win out and Louisville basically falls on its face.
Hey, they can hate Washington as much as they want. Washington lost.
And
they control what and you can let
But
somebody
you talk
hate
about
you as
the
much
one.
as you want.
But you talk about the one loss. How Michigan lost to a decent Iowa team, and they lost to USC, which has been 6 in a row now. It's, since they got the new head coach, so they've been at least a better team. But
Washington lost bad though. They lost at home.
Yeah, they didn't look like the better team.
They were out of the game the whole time.
But they're probably on the outs unless everything kind of goes haywire. Louisville, Lamar Jackson will probably get the Heisman regardless of whatever Louisville does, whether they make it to the playoffs or not. Clemson, as long as they basically keep winning out, all these teams basically, as long as they keep winning out, they're in. And then just if Louisville wins out, they'll probably slide in wherever Ohio State or Michigan, whichever one of those teams loses, because I can't imagine a playoff with a team that didn't win its conference, right? Like, at all. And maybe that happens with Louisville and Clemson. But you're going to have something where someone else is going to say they won their division, because I don't think Oklahoma's going to sneak in there with 8-2. Even if they win out and they go 10-2, I don't think they're going to be a team that sneaks in that if they win the Big 12. So now you're going to have either Ohio State, Michigan in there. If they basically if that game is really close, say that game is like 31-30 and it's really close, maybe they just drop Ohio State to 4 and Michigan to 2 because you're not surpassing Alabama at 1.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying it may do it, but it would seem weird to me if you include a team that didn't win its conference, but they may do that with Michigan and Ohio State or Clemson and Louisville, depending on how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's going to be a team that gets in that did not win their conference, it's going to be a team from the Big Ten. The Big Ten is by far the best conference this year. Normally we see the SEC, but they're having really a down year. You look at the SEC, they have Auburn and LSU at 15-16, but then they don't have anyone until Alabama at 1. You look at the Big Ten, you have 4 teams within the top 8 alone. You have Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. So I think if a non-conference winner gets in, it's for sure going to be from the Big Ten. The one thing is we all want to see Louisville in there, right? Because Lamar Jackson. He's the one guy who can single-handedly take over a game and change it. We'd love to see him.
That other than this weekend, yeah.
Right, we'd love to see him in there, but I think sort of their outside non-conference and what they've done in the conference is just not as strong as some of these other teams. You have Ohio State who beat Oklahoma on the road, and Oklahoma looks like a really good team right now, sitting at 9. You had Michigan defeat Colorado, who are sitting at 10. You have the Big Ten conference schedule, which is super, super tough. So I think one of these, obviously the Big Ten winner is going to be in for sure. I think even if it's Penn State or Wisconsin, I really do think they're going to be in. Then I think you have the at-large being an Ohio State or Michigan, or if they win the conference and maybe the other. It's going to be really tough. If there was ever a year to have like an 8-team system, it would be this year because that would be absolutely fantastic. You could like put every conference winner in for sure. So you could say like Bama, you have the Big Ten winner. Maybe you have Clemson, Washington, Oklahoma. And then you have 3 at-large teams like Louisville, maybe another team from the Big Ten, maybe even another team from the Big Ten, or you could put in like a Colorado. That would be absolutely fantastic. So maybe we're going that way towards the future. But right now we're stuck with 4, so we kind of got to like narrow it down. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to obviously the last few weeks of the season. I think Washington need a lot of help, but I think the later part of their schedule, which is coming up now, is actually kind of a good thing because they're going to have Arizona State, which they should be able to win. But then they have the Apple Cup, and now they're looking at facing either Colorado, Utah. USC is a long shot to get in there, but that's 10, 12, and 13 respectively. So they're going to have 2 ranked opponents in their last 3 games. That could be a good thing.
They're not in first place in the Pac-12 North right now.
That's if they beat Washington State.
Yeah,
though.
you got to say if they beat Washington State.
That's what I'm saying. So if they win out,
they're not guaranteed another game after they play Washington State.
If they win out, they are.
If they win out, yes, that's a pre.
I know you're a Cougs guy, so that's fine.
I'm just saying. You made it seem like as of now they would have another game.
And Washington State's next game is against Colorado.
Yeah, that's
Colorado.
That's going
to be really hard
game
for Washington State.
You know, before we even take our first break, the one thing you're saying, how SEC is having a down year, and the Big Ten is really the best, conference in football right now. You look at the Pac-12 now. People said this is a weak Pac-12 year. You have the number 6 team, you have the number 10 team, you have the number 12, the number 13, and you have Washington State at 22. That's not too bad.
And you have Stanford at 24. But
I forgot Stanford came in.
I don't really think it's a bad year for the Pac-12. I think
that's just the teams that aren't normally as good are better this year.
Exactly.
It's not the big name schools.
And I think the other thing is I think you see some good teams, but not some really good teams. Like I think Michigan is really good. I think Ohio State is really good. I think Wisconsin is really good. I think Penn State is decent. When you look at the Pac-12, I think Washington is good. I think Colorado is good. I think USC is good, but I don't think they're top to bottom. I don't think they're as competitive as the Big Ten. But I think you're right. Normally you see Stanford up there, you see UCLA up there, USC, Oregon. Yeah. This year you have Colorado, you have Washington State. It's just kind of confusing. That'd be like the SEC. You're seeing like Vanderbilt, Kentucky. At the Mississippi State, like at the top. Not Bama, Florida, LSU. So yeah. I get where you're coming from, and I agree. So I don't think the Pac-12 is necessarily down. It's just kind of a little confusing because you don't see the traditional powerhouses for the most part up there.
Mm-hmm, yeah, it's cool though. I like the variance in it this year. There's a lot of teams that aren't necessarily always like West Virginia's up there again. They haven't been good for a few years. Obviously, Colorado and Utah and Western Michigan. So a lot of fun teams to watch in this year in football. So that's at least a good thing. All right, time for a break. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk more sports. Is that right, Ben?
Well, that's what we do here on the sports show. We talk sports. So, yeah, I think we'll probably do that.
Somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed, Anthony. All right.
I woke up on the right side of the bed.
I was on the left.
Anthony's
trying to figure out I look at bed.
Anthony's like, I'm in the middle. I
don't own a bed.
I slept on the floor.
Okay. We'll take our first break and come right back here in just a moment at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. We're going to be talking some NFL news now. Jared Goff, guys, ready to make his first career start on Sunday against Anthony's Miami Dolphins. You were writing them off at the beginning of the year, but now they're playing fabulous 4 in a row, sitting at 5-4.
To be fair, I wrote them off when they were 1-4, and they looked terrible. And they lost to the Titans, and I thought all was lost. Now, since Jay Ajayi basically became the best running back in the NFL outside of Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay, there you go.
Since they started running the ball, they've been a very good team.
And poor Jared Goff. This is your first start. All right, here's Cameron Wake. Here's Ndamukong Suh. Have fun.
With a line that's not great.
With a line that's not great, yeah.
Like, I feel I said I forget what day exactly it was. I said at least make it a home game. At least
this is a home game.
I know. So at least they're doing that. It's one less thing he has to deal with in terms of crowd noise and stuff. It's not like he's going to face the Panthers, who are having a bad year, but they have that amazing defensive front at times. It's not like he's going to face the Vikings of the first 5 weeks, or it's not like he's going to face a hugely superior defense. But that pass rush is good, and that offensive line is an issue. So
his biceps are bigger than my head.
Cameron Wakes.
Yeah,
yes.
I was showing a picture.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Look at this guy.
I know how big Cameron Wakes is.
Look at him. He's a giant.
Yes. Unfortunately, I wish he was not I mean in a bad way. I wish he was better. I wish he got more notoriety.
Right.
For how he played.
You feel he's underrated.
Yeah, because he's undrafted. He came from the Canadian Football League. He I forget where he played there. There's an Argonauts
in Canada
or wherever. Yeah, I don't know where. I mean the team, Ben. But yeah, he's somebody looked at it. He was a practice squad guy, and then obviously he made the team, and he's been very good. Obviously, making a career for a while at a position that's kind of a specific niche. He's not a great overall defender. He's a really good pass rusher, and he's a good defensive player in terms of he can cover, and he can get out in space and make tackles. But he's been really good at what he does, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for it. Especially with getting and then he was kind of looked at as, okay, he's the best part of that defense, and then they brought Ndamukong Suh over, and yeah, he's played better, but then people are like, Suh's this and Suh that. I do like him a lot, though. So that's one thing. So hopefully Goff doesn't have to meet him much.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but the Rams turning over to Jared Goff in need of some offensive spark. Although the Rams did beat the Jets 9-6, it was their third game of the season where they did not produce a single touchdown on offense.
I'm looking for 303 from Goff this weekend.
Okay,
not expecting, just looking.
With this decision right here, I feel like this is not a Jeff Fisher decision. This is a front office decision, because there's been skeptics all season long that Jeff Fisher did not even want Goff. He was not a fan of him. He wasn't active day one. He said on Monday, Case Keenum's our starting quarterback, and then on Tuesday it's, Jared Goff's our starting quarterback all of a sudden. I think he's ready. After one day of practice, after one day of game film, he's suddenly ready all of a sudden.
Well, he has been getting first team snaps for a lot of the season as of now. He's been starting to get more of those, starting with their bye week. So I think maybe, from that point, he might have had a few more opportunities to be prepared, But I do think you're right. It was kind of a couple weeks ago he said he would change the receiver position before he would, change the quarterback position, and now he's changing the quarterback position. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's he's like, no, Case Keenum, he's my starter, and then he goes to the owner's just like, come here, nope.
Come hang out with me today.
Do you understand that's the number 1 overall pick? You're starting him. No, but he's not. You're starting him. Oh, you're fired. Okay, he's starting.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something along those lines, but it definitely might be.
I think billionaire Stan took him to his barn, his $1 billion barn, and was like, okay, you're going to start him or you're fired. And then he's like, He's like, okay, and then once he does bad, you're going to fire me anyway. He's like, correct.
Well, see, my thing is, so you get the first overall pick, right? Obviously, you get the first overall pick. But you don't play him. As an owner, that's an investment that you made. And they said they want to be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. I don't want to be rude to the Rams, but you're not making the playoffs this year. So, yes, you know, I get where Fisher's coming from. Maybe he's at the point where he's like, I don't want this kid getting destroyed, a la David Carr,
right,
and getting his confidence
getting sacked
broken.
Every single play.
Yeah, getting his confidence broken, because this team isn't necessarily a great team in a position for him to succeed in these games. But at the same time, a first overall pick is an investment. It's not only putting money in it. He's supposed to be your face of your franchise, and you're here through 11 weeks, 10 weeks he had yet to play. He's going to start this 11th week, but it goes to a fan base thing from there. They want to see their first overall pick. I think they know that the season's kind of not going anywhere. And they're like, okay, well, this is a business decision. We need to start the guy that we drafted to be our number one guy.
And Keenum's not lighting the world on fire. He's got 9 touchdowns scored, 11 interceptions, 61% completion percentage, and just over 2,100 yards through 9 games. So he's not lighting the world on fire by any means necessary. So I guess you can sort of see where it's going from. But you just won the game. Can you replace your starting quarterback after you win a game?
You won 9-6 though.
Yeah,
that's a win, but that's not.
And he didn't do much. We saw.
I know Kenny Britt did a lot when he absolutely torched Darrelle Revis for over 100 yards this weekend. Yeah. But I mean, I get it, but it's like
we saw the Browns literally take. I mean, I know they're winless and they're looking for something, but they had a quarterback who had 4 incompletions and over 90 yards passing and touchdown at halftime, and they just took him out of the game. So we've seen weirder things.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of confused by that one. But
I have a league. I have a fantasy league. I have 2 leagues in which I'm in first place. I have another league in which I'm like almost in last place because it's a different style league, and so I don't really have anything to lose. So I picked up Cody Kessler that week and played him, and I was like, oh, good start. And then
I remember,
not good start.
I remember one time. I remember totally off topic, but I remember one time in fantasy football, I was totally eliminated from playoff contention. So what I did was I picked up players that I knew were intentionally going to get 0, and I tried to get a negative point total for the week, and I actually did because I picked up a defense that lost points. So I ended up getting like -2.
Well, Ben.
So that was that was an accomplishment. But as far as the Rams,
to me.
So wait, hold on, no. I need to go back on this. We need to go back. Hold on. So you basically decided I'm going to take for this year, I'm going to take
I picked
Josh
up
Gordon or something.
I picked up backup quarterbacks. I knew they were going to be active, backup quarterbacks, 4th string running backs and receivers and tight ends, backup kickers. I did that.
There's no backup kickers.
Yes, there is. There's got to be, because I did it.
There's got to be.
And then I picked up a defense that played I don't remember who it was, but who's the worst defense in the league? And I'll just say
Cleveland.
San Francisco or Cleveland.
Yeah, San Francisco.
I picked up them against the Falcons or the Cowboys, the Steelers, really good offenses, and they got negative points. So I ended up getting negative points for the week. But anyways, off topic, like I said, back on the topic, the Dolphins are playing really good, 4-0 in their last 4 games. I don't really have much faith in Jared Goff because if he was really going to set out to be a great player, the number 1 overall pick, wouldn't he have been playing already? Already 5 starting rookies have started a game before he has, and he's number 1 pick. Do we both agree, or are we all in agreement here that I think he's going to struggle?
Oh, yeah, he's going to struggle.
I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily going to struggle.
Can he do worse than Case Keenum?
Technically speaking, anybody can do worse. You can have a game where you throw 4 picks because of batted balls or sacks and the ball goes up in the air. But I think he's a better quarterback than Case Keenum. And I want to see him succeed. I like Goff. I want to see him do well. I'm hoping he does well.
Of course, I hope he does well too, but I honestly expect him to struggle. I'm a Cal college football fan, so I watch their games a lot. Mm-hmm. And even in college, I was not really impressed with Goff. Really, is all 3 years he started there, I was not really impressed. In big games, he seemed to kind of disappear. So, I really don't think he's all that great. I think he's kind of a skinny guy. I think his ceiling is somewhere around a Ryan Tannehill type, which is not terrible, but it's not really good.
That's not very good at
It's
all.
okay.
It's
I think
okay.
that's really his ceiling. I don't see much of a future with Jared Goff. But we'll have to wait and see facing Miami, a team that's definitely on the rise. I think it's a good decision they're starting him at home. Obviously, I expected that. But I think this is definitely a front office decision and not a head coach decision.
You know the Rams have a better win percentage when they don't score a touchdown than when they do?
They're 2-1, yes.
Compared to 2-4 when they score a touchdown?
Did you see Fisher on Monday? He's like, well, I feel like we have an offensive juggernaut sometimes. I was like,
I feel like you don't know.
Are you being sarcastic?
I feel like you don't know the definition of that word.
I think he's being sarcastic, but
I hope so.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Very true.
All right, so moving on real quick before we take our last break. The Seattle Seahawks have released running back Christine Michael.
Poor Christine Michael, man.
For the second time now. He got released initially, when he was a rookie and everything, but this season he had 117 carries for 469 yards, so about 4 yards a pop. Wasn't doing too bad, but with the emergence of C.J. Prosise last week against New England, over 150 total yards between receiving and rushing. And now you have Thomas Rawls, who's due back from a fibula injury that he suffered in week 2, and even just an ankle injury going back to last season.
And they have Alex Collins, the rookie, on their roster as well.
Yes.
I didn't know he was on the active roster.
So with Rawls set to return this week, and now you have Prosise kind of emerging as their lead back, at least until Rawls gets up to speed. No real surprise that the Seahawks released Christine Michael. Although he was doing okay with the team, seems to maybe still have a little bit of an attitude problem, kind of struggling lately.
He's injured a bit to his hamstring, so they decided to part ways, I guess.
Any predictions? I know Green Bay could use a running back, but...
I could see him going to a team like the Browns, maybe, that need depth, or maybe a team like, I don't know, maybe Jacksonville if they really feel like adding another running back to that running back pool. A team that maybe needs a change of pace guy like the Colts, who have an aging Frank Gore. You can go along the lines of looking at, a team like Minnesota that doesn't necessarily have a lot of output from their running back position as it stands right now.
I think a lot of that has to do with their offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the Niners, because the Niners have done that before, where they get somebody released within their division and they're like, oh, come hang out with us for a little while. The Packers, I don't know. I don't think they'll add another running back.
I don't see it, but
again,
I know they could definitely use one.
You got Starks healthy, and then you have at least a running back behind Starks. So if you look at it that way, I don't know really what else a team would sign him. I would say I'm going to go with Minnesota. Makes sense.
I think the division thing's interesting. You made a good point there.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, Minnesota's not bad. You got to think he goes somewhere because he's not going to Cleveland. Why would you go to Cleveland? That's no fun.
Very true. I'll say Minnesota or Indianapolis.
Yeah, Indianapolis isn't bad because Frank Gore, while he's been consistent, hasn't been amazing.
Yeah, and he's a little older. You know, you don't want to run him rampant.
Yeah,
you don't want to tire the boy out. You don't want to tire the man. You don't want to kill him. You want to let him run.
You don't want to kill him. I would hope not.
Let him run free. Well, playing behind that offensive line, you never know. You never know, Ben. Okay.
The guy who might get killed behind the offensive line is Andrew Luck.
He got close.
I was about to say,
lacerated his spleen.
I was about to say last year was pretty close. Maybe this year he'll finally.
Before we take our break, I was
bucket.
say it's so weird when you read injury reports and what's wrong with people. And you see ankle, hamstring, thing, this and that, and then I was reading it last year and it's lacerated spleen.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god.
Well, last week was it Gronkowski punctured lung, and now they're saying that may not be the case, but that's what it was. It was punctured, and just oh, he might be out a week.
I'll give you.
That guy's not even human, though.
I'll give you at least one thing. At least that was a legitimate legal hit.
Yeah,
didn't go his legs, didn't go his face. At least they just.
And they even apologized to him, Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas, even though I don't like him on the field, he's a nice guy. Same thing, Richard Sherman. I don't like Richard Sherman at all on the football field, but he's a smart, nice guy.
Yeah, he graduated from Stanford, so he's pretty smart.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even.
Dummies don't go there.
I don't care where he played. I know he went to Stanford, but I didn't need to know that to know how smart he was. That guy has been very forefront with a lot of things where I hear him talk. I'm like, wow, this is a smart guy. This guy is smart.
He's the best in the game.
I wouldn't say that.
And when you try him with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders beat the Seahawks this year. If those teams played it, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders beat them. But anyways,
I think Seattle's pretty good.
We're not talking about that.
All right, anyways, so let's take our last break. After the break, we'll talk some baseball news. We have our managers of the year to announce, and then we will do some predictions for the Cy Young Awards right after the break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and we're back. The food truck's back, and we're going to talk real quick baseball. Manager of the Year was announced for the AL and the NL respectively last year. For the NL, Dave Roberts, he became the 6th rookie manager ever to win the award. It's his first year with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the NL West champion Dodgers. He beat out Joe Maddon of the Cubs, obviously, and Dusty Baker of the Nationals to win the National League Manager of the Year award. He obviously was probably the go-to pick for the NL. I mean, not only did he post a 91-71 record, he did so by using 51 position players and 15 pitchers, and losing Clayton Kershaw for 75 days, starting in June all the way to almost the postseason. He did a very impressive and good job, in my opinion. I don't know if they were the best team at the end of the year, you know. They did lose a series to the Giants at the very end of the year. They got swept. They didn't look great, but then they got in the playoffs, and anything can happen in the playoffs, and they advanced, and they made it look good. Excuse me. So, yeah, definitely impressive for him there. And then we look at the AL, and we have Terry Francona winning the AL Manager of the Year award. For the Indians, of course, pretty good year for him. Gets all the way to the World Series, 94-67 record. They made its first playoff appearance since 2013. They won their first division title since 2007. So it's very good for him. Obviously, they did unfortunately lose to the Cubs in the World Series. He beat out Texas manager. So he finished ahead of Texas manager Jeff Bannister, the Rangers, and then of course Buck Showalter of the Orioles, and John Farrell of the Red Sox was around there as well. This is not the first time he's won any kind of recognition either. Obviously, he was a pretty good manager with the Red Sox.
Yeah, his second AL Manager of the Year for the Indians, actually. He won that in 2013 when he was there for the first time. But so I'm not real surprised. You can maybe say Madden with the Cubs because they had 103 wins, but I think everything Roberts did...
He won it the year before either. You don't ever really see a lot of coaches unless they do crazy stuff back-to-back, win it back-to-back years. Managers do, at least.
I think everything Roberts did, having to deal with the amount of injuries he did, especially to Kershaw, the best pitcher in the game.
Yeah, when I thought the way they were playing and when Kershaw got injured, I was like, oh, done. You know what I mean? I didn't think they had the greatest team around them. Obviously, a lot of guys stepped up to Seager. They had the whole thing with Puig leaving and coming back, and he played okay the end stretch there. Just a lot of young guys, a lot of young athletes in LA right now that are playing well. So, and I mean in all sports, the Lakers obviously with a young team, and then a lot of young pieces on the Dodgers. So, yeah, and very impressive with what he did. And then Francona, I mean, that guy is just the epitome of success at times. He is the 6th active manager to win the award multiple times, joining Dusty Baker, Joe Maddon, like you said, Bob Melvin, Mike Scioscia, and Buck Showalter, whom he beat out for this one. Very impressive, Ben. Very impressive, Anthony.
Yeah, you basically get guys who basically did the most with less, because you could have said, in Chicago, it could have been Joe Maddon, but he had all the success, and there was never really that much resistance or struggle with the year. They were always basically winning. Cleveland had injuries, be it Brantley or whoever. You had over in the National League, you had Corey Seager and Maeda, both as rookies, come back. You talked about Yasiel Puig. You talked about Kershaw. You had all these things happening. It was all the chaos and basically able to both right the ship or whatever and make it into the playoffs and be really successful with that. They're the ones that get recognized more than the team that was just kind of smooth sailing all the way through.
Exactly. All right, now we're going to do one last thing real quick before we get going. We're going to look at the Cy Young finalists and see, really in our eyes, who might be the winners that gets announced tonight. Am I right, Ben?
Yes, that is correct. So for the National League side, a couple of Cubs on there with a member of the Nationals. So we have Kyle Hendricks, the ERA champion this year in the major leagues at 2.13. Also had a 16-8 record. Then you have John Lester with a 19-5 record, 2.44 ERA, so pretty good as well, and 197 strikeouts. Then you have Max Scherzer instead of the Nationals, 2.96 ERA, 20 wins, 7 losses, and a league-high 284 strikeouts. I think it comes down to the two pitchers for the Cubs. All year I've been saying Hendricks. I think it's because of that ERA. But honestly, now that I kind of look and sit back and think about it, I think I'll probably go with Lester as my prediction because his ERA is almost equally as good, 2.44, more wins, less losses, more strikeouts. And Hendricks just really was not the same pitcher away from home that he was at Wrigley. So I think sort of that balancing act there, not really even there. I think they'll maybe go with Lester.
I do kind of like the way the NL1 is shaped because you have Kyle Hendricks who had the ERA and the wins at home, right? And you had Lester who had the overall wins, and then you had Scherzer who was a strikeout guy, and obviously great in that sense. Yeah, I think I'll give it to Lester on this one. What about you?
See, I thought it was going to be Hendricks the whole time just because Hendricks was ERA leader. His whip was better. The wins weren't the same, but you also had something where, you don't necessarily look at wins as much as you used to. You kind of go with more of the advanced metrics. Not that whip is that advanced of a metric, but he beat him in both of those things, and I don't know, this is just kind of like a weird thing for me. Like Lester can't throw to first base, which is really a weird thing for me still.
Yes, but it's not an award on.
It's not an award on that, no. But like I would think it'd be Hendricks between the two.
Okay, now AO real quick. We have Verlander, we have Corey Kluber of the Indians, Verlander obviously of the Tigers, and Rick Porcello of the Red Sox. Who do you guys see winning this one? I think Kluber.
Okay.
I think Kluber could win it. I think it's more so it's between him and Porcello, though. I think Verlander had a good year, but I don't think he's going to win this one. Let's start with you, Anthony.
So, yeah, because Porcello and Kluber, both of them have records that are pretty close, like we talked about before with John Lester and Hendricks, how it was kind of a close thing with that. You get Kluber, who ERA 3.14 to Porcello. Excuse me, his ERA is 3.15. Whip's really close too. Wins goes to Porcello. Porcello had a technically better pitching staff around him because you had David Price, to where Kluber didn't have anybody really outside of him to rely on. I guess that's also. I'll go with Kluber.
Okay, and then Ben, real quick before we get going.
I guess I'll go Porcello kind of by default, 22-4, so he had the best record in the majors, most wins, and then the least amount of losses for anyone that really qualified. So I guess I'll go with Porcello for that, but his stats aren't really standoutish. They don't, like I said, 3.15 ERA, not that great. It's decent, but okay. He got a lot of wins because Boston simply had the best offense this season during the regular season, most runs scored. So he didn't really do anything fantastic, but I think the ERA is decent enough for the American League. The American League pitching is just not as good as the National League. So I guess I'll go with Porcello. But for me, the one guy I can't believe is on this list is Verlander at 16-9, ERA of 3.04, which is not bad. But for me, the guy that got really shafted in my eyes is Zach Britton of the Orioles. 47 out of 47 saves, a .54 ERA.
They look at it
to
hard
not even be
closers.
A finalist, though.
Yeah, I know, but you look at it; it's always been hard for closers to really get up in that Cy Young competition. When there's, yes, over Verlander maybe, but not over Porcello or Kluber. So.
Yeah, maybe not to win it, but at least getting in over Verlander. 47 out of 47 saves. Literally every time he came in, he did not blow one save the whole entire year. That is impressive.
Well, the point is getting him in the game. Okay, all right. Well, let's take off. How about that? I fooled you. I said I'd take our last break. Let's finish the show out. Tomorrow, of course, you won't be here, but Anthony and I will be back tomorrow. We will, right here. We'll preview tomorrow's Thursday night football game. We will talk the Cy Young winners, of course, and anything that comes up between then. And I just want to make sure it's known to the world because sometimes things like this sneak out. David Big Papi Ortiz officially retired. He's officially retired. He put it in his papers. That is a legacy that is going to live on forever, Ben.
That's true.
All right, so that is it for us. We have a 24-hour break heading up to us right now. But until then, remind you to enjoy your sports, any basketball, any hockey, any baseball, any, if you like to watch old reruns of baseball, any football, anything and everything, enjoy it. And Anthony and I will be back tomorrow. Ben will be back on Friday. Thank you guys for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alex.
My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day and enjoy your sports.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.